Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Nigeria Safeguarding Resource and Support Hub webinar. Today's webinar is titled Organizational Culture, an Essential Approach to Safeguarding. I am Oluchi Hedero, currently serving as the National Representative at the Safeguarding Resource and Support Hub, RSH Nigeria. Please be informed that we have available closed captioner. You can access the closed caption feature by clicking on the CC button just at the bottom of your screen. Today's webinar will be looking at disseminating the key findings from the Organizational Culture Pilot Study, which RSH Nigeria conducted with 10 Nigerian civil society organizations in 2022. We will also discuss the importance and the impact of this study to their safeguarding journey, as well as the implementation. To do this, we have three speakers who will talk us through each part of this webinar. Our first speaker is Oge Chukwudozie. Oge is the Global Safeguarding Advisor for the Safeguarding Resource and Support Hub, providing technical guidance and support to RSH teams in MENA, South Asia, and Africa regions. Prior to taking on the role of Global Safeguarding Advisor, Oge was the national representative of the Nigeria Hub. Oge's presentation will be based on the RSH Organizational Culture Pilot Study. As the initiator of these projects, Oge will share based on the observations and experiences gathered during the implementation of these projects, as well as based on the evidence generated from the study as documented in the learning brief by RSH. Sylvia will share the link to this learning brief in the chat for your view. Oge's presentation will cover the objective of the study, what was done, what was achieved, lessons learned, challenges faced, and possible recommendations for you, our dear audience. Our second speaker, Uboga Adaji. Uboga is a seasoned development professional with 20 years plus years in health and social sciences. With qualifications in health systems management, home science, and public health, she's worked with organizations like the Red Cross, ICAP, MSH, and PACT Incorporated. Her expertise spans across managing HIV, OVC, and childhood illnesses in Nigeria. Notably, she's contributed to health emergency control manuals, OVC agendas, and essential medicines coordination. Currently, she's the executive director of a nonprofit organization called Center for Community Resource, Health and Social Development, CCRHSD, in Benue State, who work to empower vulnerable populations and enhance access to essential services. Her presentation will focus on CCRHSD's experiences as one of the 10 organizations that were involved in this study. She will take us through the successes achieved through this project, the surprises that this project brought to her organization, some significant challenges they encountered, and sustained improvements that have taken place post the pilot study. And our third speaker is Nankia Buki Sule. Nankia currently holds the position of safeguarding consultant and mentor at the Safeguarding Resource and Support Hub. With a strong commitment to the development and humanitarian sector, Nankia brings practical experiences in implementing child protection and gender-based violence programs. Nankia has actively assisted local and international organizations across multiple countries in bolstering their safeguarding capabilities and practices. She has been integral in formulating policies and procedures designed to cultivate and advocate for a positive work culture within these organizations. Nankia has conducted training sessions for organizations and provided personalized coaching to focal points on safeguarding and prevention of sexual exploitation and abuse. Nankia's presentation will also focus on her experiences as a RSH mentor that was involved in this study. She will as well share with us from her observations the successes achieved through the project, surprises brought by the project in the organizations that she mentored, significant challenges that they both encountered, and how organizations can sustain the improvements achieved from the project. Before we start, a few points on housekeeping. First, you are all on mute with your videos turned off. This is to support with the quality and connection of the webinar. Please be aware that we'll be recording this webinar to share on the online hub afterwards for anyone who was not able to join. Please know that your names will not be visible. Also be advised that this webinar may contain content on safeguarding that some may find distressing. If you'd like to ask any questions during the live Q&A session, please add them to the Q&A function throughout the webinar. You can find the Q&A in the controls panel on the bottom of your screen. You can add new questions or upvote any existing questions. We'll try to cluster them in order to answer as many of them as possible. Now, without much ado, I'm going to invite our first speaker to take us through the first section of this webinar. Over to you, Ogechukwu Dozie.
Thank you very much, Oluchi. Hi, all. For my presentation, I'll be sharing, as Oluchi mentioned, about RSH Organizational Culture Pilot Study that was done in Nigeria in 2022. Next slide, please. All right, so the objective of that pilot study was, so for RSH, we wanted to help organizations to understand the sort of organizational culture they have. And then we wanted them to also understand the role their organizational values play in determining the culture they have. And then for them to also understand the types of leadership behaviors that they demonstrate. And finally, the organizational behaviors that exist, which may help or hinder the development of a safeguarding culture. Next slide, please. Now, some now might be asking, what is organizational culture? From Bond defines organizational culture as the personality of an organization. The way we do things here, you know, like when we say that's how we do things around here, it encompasses the underlying values, beliefs, and code of practice that make an organization what it is. It can be seen through behavior, language, customs, rules, group interactions, and habits. So just like the normal culture, you know, societal culture that is shown through behaviors and language and how people dress, organizational culture is also seen by how people interact and how people behave in that organization. Sometimes there are written rules, sometimes the rules are also not written. An organization might have a value that says we are transparent, we are diverse, we appreciate people to air their opinions, you know, like you have a speak-up culture. However, in practice, that is not happen. In practice, you have people who are victimized for challenging the opinions of the leaders or asking questions or wanting to find out more. And then that person will be tagged as being deviant and now being victimized, threatened, or even laid off. So when such happens, other staff are watching these things. And then what will happen is that people will not be speaking up again. Rather, people will now focus on searching for other jobs. They'll be going to my job mag and other job boards to look for jobs because the culture in that organization is not conducive. So for organizational culture is actually important. The positive organizational culture is important in safeguarding because you cannot Safeguarding means, like do no harm, make sure that you are not causing harm to people. So you cannot have an organization that is toxic, where the culture is toxic, and yet you are saying you are not doing harm. A toxic work culture already is causing harm. So the positive organizational culture that we promote is one that is empowering, motivating, and liberating to all who come in contact with the organization. Let's have the next slide, please. Now, there are several steps that we took in terms of strengthening the safe organizational culture for these organizations that were part of the organizational culture pilot study. So the first was the selection of CSOs. For RSH Nigeria then, we focused on getting CSOs who already know about safeguarding, so who already have their safeguarding basics in place. They have safeguarding systems. They're already working on something on safeguarding, and these we selected from those who were part of the mentorship program we did on basic safeguarding. So that was the first, because we wanted people to really commit to the culture part rather than using that process to start thinking of the basic safeguarding systems. And then the organizations provided information on their focus, their priorities, and their readiness to change. So they committed that they are willing to work on whatever issues they identify and change. And then we had the first peer workshop. During this first peer workshop, it was an opportunity to introduce to the organizations the mentoring program, and then they also familiarized with the mentors. For RSH, our mentorship program usually have consultants who serve as mentors to really work and journey with these organizations. So they familiarized with the mentors, and then it was also an opportunity to network with other organizations. Like Oluchi mentioned, we worked with 10 CSOs on these organizational culture pilots. And so there was that opportunity for organizations to network amongst themselves. And then the next stage was now the mentoring support. So after that first workshop, everybody went back to the organizations, and then the mentors now, supported the organization. So first, the mentors were now paired with the organizations. And then the organizations identified the existing culture, like remember that's one of the objectives. So they identified what the existing culture is, because it's important to know where you are to now know, where you want to be. So they identified the existing culture, and then, saw their vision for change, so they were able to articulate the vision they have for change. So like having your baseline and then the visioning of what you want to, where you want to be. And then they actually now, with the support of the mentor, identified priority actions that will help them to achieve that change that they want. And the next was now the peer exchange, which will also continue to happen every 2 months. So we had other peer exchanges 2 to 4, where organizations come together to continue to exchange practice learning and then continue to build on successes and address challenges. Next slide, please. Now, I mentioned about the priority action points to help organizations in terms of achieving that change they want. And the action points are actually like divided into 4 main areas, which we call the areas of focus. And these are some of the examples that that the organization took in. You also see this in the learning brief that Sylvia had shared, and this slide will also be shared with you. So in terms of, we have like 4 areas of focus: organizational values, leadership, organizational behavior, and then staff as agents of change. So for organizational values, an example of the actions that they took was first to update or review or develop their values if they don't have. And these values are values that promote diversity, that promotes inclusion, that allow for transparency. So they reviewed this, and then all staff were actually made aware of it and made to sign up to that. And to allow staff to also continue to discuss this and refresh their minds on this, there were like week discussion of the values and how it affects the organization during weekly staff meetings. and then staff were trained, so having opportunities to really discuss about the values and how really the organization is imbibing those values. Because you see, what happens most times is that organizations will have values there, like I mentioned earlier, but they're actually not imbibing this. And then the leadership is also a key one. Leaders need to model the positive behavior that they want to see. So there were sessions and activities that the mentors conducted, dialogue sessions on recognizing conscious and unconscious bias. It is something that, everybody has a level of bias unconsciously. That's how our brains process information and make decisions. But being aware of your unconscious bias, helps you in terms of knowing where to draw the line and helping you to, question your assumptions. And sessions on unacceptable behaviors, so that the leaders really, will be able to model that positive behavior that they want. And then the third one is around organizational behavior. So now the leaders are modeling the behavior, then it needs to trickle down to the organization. And for this, some of the activities that were conducted were sessions to discuss power imbalances, so that people, different positions in the organization will understand and question where their power lies, and who is also vulnerable. So recognizing this will help people understand how to actually utilize their power in an empowering manner. And then finally, we have staff as change agents, where the whole organization now has the behavior has now changed or is about changing, and then staff are now more aware and more equipped. And so there are different activities in terms of frequent communications about positive safeguarding practices among staff and volunteers, where staff themselves are the ones picking up and leading this discussion. Next slide, please. Now, we had some lessons that we learned from that pilot study and some recommendations. So the first is that organizational culture requires strong commitment at all levels of an organization, especially from the senior management. You cannot achieve positive organizational culture where the senior management is not modeling those behavior that is expected or that is positive. Because of course, whatever the leader whatever behavior or whatever the leader shows is what gets trickled down. So, and that leads to the second point of leadership by example. So it's important for leaders to actually lead by example. And then when we had those peer exchange meetings, leaders were even discussing and reflecting how inadvertently they didn't know that some of their actions are actually causing harm, or in a way reducing staff and making staff not to be able to speak up, because they are not really providing the adequate safe space for staff and others to speak up. So it's important for leaders to lead by example. And the other one, the opportunity for different leaders to meet and exchange ideas, provide motivation for change. So, as part of the pilot study, we had top, the executive directors of organizations, the head of programs, and for one organization, we even had representation from the board. So they were really senior members of that organization. So having these top people come together in a room to share ideas, it motivates, we even got some nice quotes from people to say yes, the peer exchange workshop actually is very empowering because it helped us also see what others are doing and then learn from one another. So that also is a key thing that we'll always promote. So to have opportunity for people to come together to share and learn. And the next lesson we learned and recommendation we will have is that rewarding positive behavior encourages culture change. So when staff who like are in line with what is being promoted. Such staff should be appreciated, should be recognized, should be commended. And so that way it motivates the staff that is doing well, and it also serves as motivation for others to know that, oh, okay, so yeah, this is actually the right thing, and that this is coming to stay. Because one key challenge that we also noticed is that staff sometimes feel, oh, is it just another thing? When it comes as just one of those things that we're supposed to do, then it doesn't really get taken down. It doesn't get really assimilated by the organization and the staff. But when there is commitment to show that, yes, we are really committed to this, we are not just saying it, you really need to walk the talk, then staff gets to now start imbibing and knowing that, yes, this is actually for real. And the final point I want to bring out now is that funding is very important in implementing safeguarding activities. So it's essential for donors, for funders to actually make provision in their budgets, in their funds for safeguarding activities, and for CSOs to also budget for safeguarding activities in their when they are budgeting for their programs and all. RSH had lots of resources. There are specific ones on how to integrate safeguarding in proposals, so that organizations will be able to know some of the key things that they can actually budget for that will help them to achieve a safe organization. Next slide, please. Yeah, so we have some resources, as I mentioned, on the hub that is available to you. Like you already know, our research hub is an open access free resource. So yeah, we'll have lots of resources there, like the learning brief that has been shared, and then some tools on project implementation. And then of course you will have this slide for those who have registered to be able to access more and gain more on this. Thank you very much. Let me hand back now to the chair. I'll let you back to you.
Thank you so much, Oge, for taking us through this pilot study, sharing with us the lessons and the recommendations gathered, which this is the most important part of the whole journey. And thank you for emphasizing on the fact that leadership commitments can never be overemphasized as an essential factor towards driving positive organizational culture for all organizations. And I take that quote from you, I've noted that down, and you said that whatever the leadership shows gets trickled. That I have pointed, and that I will encourage everyone here to take back to the organization. The leadership has to model what they want to see in their organization. Thank you once again. And now I am going to hand over to our second speaker, Uboga Adaji. Please take over.
Thank you so much, Oluchi. Good morning, everyone. I will be taking over from Ogechi to talk about our experience as one of the organizations that benefited from the mentorship program. Next slide, please. I will talk about our successes through the program, the surprises that were brought up by participating in the project, our significant challenges and the improvements that we have sustained post-project implementation. Next slide, please. We had increased visibility because of the integration of the safeguarding principles into our organizational values. And that was very good for us. As Ogechi mentioned before, we had values that we had less understanding about what that meant and what should be our expected behavior. But at the course of this program, we were able to unpack what each of these values meant, what hard work meant for us, what commitment meant, what innovation meant, what transparency meant, and that helped to increase our visibility. For each staff too, in addition to the refresher program we had continually, we also had them displayed for staff and associates and volunteers to internalize. In addition to that, it helped us also to be able to position better for donor funding. And then under leadership, the senior management from the executive director of the organization is seriously committed to driving the change, the culture of change in the organization. There is increased open communication. There is freedom of expression. Staff are made to understand that they can freely express themselves and then address concerns that are challenging to them. We also have a continuous strengthening of the staff capacity to understand their ability to recognize power and unequal power relation amongst both senior and junior staff, and even among staff and volunteers and other associates and partners of the program. We also have increased knowledge on how to manage biased and unbiased situations and how to address all of those. And it really helped us to be able to provide quick intervention and get justice for our program partners, our program participants. We had a very serious situation of abuse with one of our program participants, with our associate, and we were able to address it as quickly as possible. Under behavior, organizational behavior, all that we have learned has increased our communication, open communication and transparency in the organization. There is no more secrecy in communication. Even junior staff are able to get information very quickly and timely and relate. And it closed the gap of gossips and half information that could have been passed to some people. Secondly, there is increased collaboration and teamwork among staff, and that ultimately has led to what? Increased productivity for us as an organization. And that increased productivity earned us as the best organization OVC program for one of the donors that we worked with. Next slide, please. What have been our surprises? We realized that the relationship among staff were tensed. And before the project, and this was unknown to us. But you know, as knowledge increased about transparency, knowledge increased about power and its relation, about bias and conscious and unconscious biases, people were able to talk out freely, and we understood how tense relationship was, which was capable of affecting our productivity. There is also increased staff recognized what unacceptable behaviors were, and then they became very bold to begin to challenge these behaviors. We find not only the junior staff, our volunteers could walk up to the senior management, walk up to the program manager and say, these are situations that are uncalled for in the place of work. These are issues that make the workplace toxic, and they would want them to be addressed. And such issues have been attended to, and they can now work freely and then communicate with everyone freely. There is also increased accountability consciousness level from both management team and staff members. As an executive director, I know that I have the responsibility, overall accountability responsibility. And so I could pick on the senior management staff and ensure that they address these issues, because junior staff and volunteers could walk up to me now and tell me some of the issues they have that we need to address as quickly as possible. We also realize that it is important for our volunteers, other associates, and junior staff who are integral part of the work to understand that they are as important to the work that we do as any other staff. So no one sees himself as no one is feeling that I am not important. Everyone is a valuable part of the successes that we achieve, and they are working towards achieving it. Next slide, please. What are our challenges? Staff have been so empowered, that sometimes they find it difficult to be able to differentiate between what are values and abusive situations. And we also have difficult economic situation which is affecting the full implementation, especially in the current economic situation. Next slide, please. So what are our sustained improvement? Leadership has continued to model the desired behavior. We hold refresher sessions regularly to increase staff understanding and sustain it. We engage staff using the safeguarding lens, and we also have hold regular surveys through the safe space meetings, and we get feedback on what is going on well and what we need to address. It's really an honor for CCRHSD to have been part of this process, and we trust that other organizations will have the process, the opportunity with to be part of this thing to improve the organizational culture and the work they do. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Boga Adani. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for taking us through that session and sharing with us your experiences from this pilot study as an organization. Thanks once again for validating what was previously mentioned by Oge concerning leadership commitment towards promoting safer culture in an organization. And as an executive director, you've also confirmed this. So it has to move and modeled by the leadership of the organization and then trickle down to the rest of the team. Our dear audience and friends who are here with us today, please remember that you can send through any question you have using the Q&A button beneath your screen. And very soon, we'll get over to the Q&A session and we'll address all of those questions. Now, I am going to hand over to our third speaker, Nanke Suli. Over to you, Nanke.
Thank you, Oluchi, and good morning, everyone. So for me, I'll be speaking from the perspective of a mentor, someone who worked closely with the organizations on the culture change project. And this morning, I'll focus my presentation on the factors that contributed to the successes that were outlined in Oge's and Ubonga's presentation. One thing that really contributed to the successes during the mentorship program was the high level of commitment and dedication on the part of the organizational leadership. They actually understood that the change was theirs, and so they set the tone and created a sense of urgency for everyone to understand the importance of having a positive organization culture in place. They took the lead on most of their activities and supported us in every way possible to ensure that we had a smooth journey. Areas where we needed to do modifications, for example, on the HR policy, where we needed to include a clause on diversity, equality, and inclusion, they were there to support, with the process and ensure the dissemination of the modified policy. There was also this willingness and ability to have difficult conversations and admit where they made mistakes. So in our conversations with them, they were open and transparent in totality. And for most of the reflection sessions or the dialogue sessions, there were moments for these organizations to actually look inward in terms of their organizational values and their commitment to those to modeling the values. Also looking at the role of leadership on how the leaders behave and handle issues within the organization, and as well looking at the general practices within the organization. The session that really struck most that was more like an eye-opener for most of the leaders was the session on examine conscious and unconscious bias. That really opened their eyes, to see that, some of their actions in one way or the other might have, you know, might have impacted negatively on the staff of the organization. Another factor was, the organizational leadership actually created that safe space for the staff of the organizations to speak up. I remember in one of the sessions, one of the organizational leadership, advised the staff to approach, the sessions in their authentic selves. They shouldn't be afraid of, speaking up, because whatever they are going to be discussing during the session will never be held against them. But of course, it will be, used in order to make transformations within the organization. So they created that safe space for their staff to approach the sessions without any fear. I want to just add on this one to say that for me, one of the knowledge, one of the successes will have to do with the knowledge gain in the entire process, from the beginning to the end, for me as a mentor and also for the organizations, because there was a cross sharing of ideas, sharing of experiences, across this organization. So the entire process was a learning one for us all. Next slide, please. Okay, so the culture change project came with a lot of surprises for these organizations. And during the peer workshop, the last peer workshop, we heard from these organizations saying that there is an increase in productivity. So we heard from them saying that the workspace was more respectful and inclusive, and there was this free flow of communication within the organizations. We also heard from the staff saying that there's this sense of this feeling of safety and a sense of belonging. They felt that their voices are being heard and their contributions are being valued, as the environment itself is free from fear and intimidation. We also learned from the staff that there is an increase in the confidence of the staff to challenge negative practices and negative behaviors. This is because, of course, the reflection sessions or the dialogue sessions actually open their eyes, to what behaviors are acceptable and what are not acceptable. And so, because they could identify these behaviors, they are able to challenge them. So for one of the organizations, they shared with us that they have a slogan, change agents we are. So if the one person is going the other way or derail from the values of the organization, they have a way of calmly approaching the person to say, change agents we are. So it's a way of keeping everybody on check. And then, of course, the realization that it is their collective responsibility to create a positive organizational culture. The surprise that actually stood out for me the most has to do with the understanding on the organizational values. We had to translate the organizational values into different behaviors that the organizations wanted to see, and that actually gave a different perspective, on the organizational values. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the project came with its own challenges for me as a mentor. One of it was, at the point we started the culture change project, there were fewer resources on safe organizational culture, and so it was really a bit of a challenge for us to navigate through the support that we're supposed to, provide to the organizations. But the good thing was that we had ourselves, the mentors. We relied so much on each other, and then we also revert back to RSH, to double check with them on, some of the activities that we outlined to achieve. Then another challenge for me at the beginning was the leaders understanding the concept of change. It was difficult for them to really understand that on the culture framework, we had a particular aspect that we're looking at, the informal aspects of the culture framework. It was really difficult for them. So because they needed to have that understanding of the informal aspect of the culture framework in order for them to develop their vision for change. And it's the vision of change, with the vision of change, that will be able to, outline the activities that will be tailored to their own vision. So we had to keep making reference to the culture framework. And then, of course, at the end of the day, we're able to move forward from there. Not all the leaders were committed to the process. Of course, it's a journey, and we understand that not everyone will be on the same at the same level. Then we had some clashing schedules, and then also we experienced issues with the network because it was more of an online engagement. Next slide, please. So on the plans to sustain the culture itself, of course, the organization leadership understand that this is a journey that is never going to end. And so they know that they'll have to, sustain the practices. So we heard from this organization that they will continue to hold the dialogue and the reflection sessions and also training on topics that are relevant to them. They will continue to empower change agents to lead on organizational conversations. They will also continue to hold each other accountable for their actions and their inactions. And of course, the senior leadership will continue to model positive behaviors. Thank you very much. This is it from me. Over to you, Oluchi.
Thank you so much, Nike, for sharing those experiences with us from your perspective as a mentor that was involved in the study. Thanks for reminding us that behavioral change, it is not automatic. It is something that occurs over time, right? And it is essential that it is understood. The concept, the objective, the vision is understood from the start. And it's okay if it is a challenge for organizations from the beginning of the project or anytime you decide to bring about this positive and safer change and culture. Understand that it's normal for that challenge to be there from the experience Nanke has shared, and then plan towards surmounting that challenge. Now, our dear friends, we are going to go into the Q&A session to look at all and address them to meet your needs. I have the first question, which says, that is from Jerry K. Have you had an opportunity to carry out follow-up engagements with the organizations to see if the behavioral changes are still being practiced? I'm going to ask Oge Chukwudozie to please kindly respond to this question.
Thank you, Oluchi. Thanks, Njeri K, for that question. So yeah, while we haven't really done, like an evaluation after some months in the program, there was a study, because this is pilot study. So there was a study, a documentation, which is the learning brief, like soon after the project ended, because how donor funding can be. However, so even though, yes, we've not done that a formal evaluation, however, we have different mechanisms that are in place that where organizations still share and learn. We have a community of practice. While the community of practice is not solely for these organizations that participated in the culture projects, the community of practice is for all the organizations who have been part of RSH mentoring. And you remember, like what I mentioned earlier, the 10 organizations were part of the RSH mentoring. So they're still part of the larger group. And then in that larger group, there are still discussions, there is still sharing about safeguarding. So showing that it's not, that interest is still there, and that sustainability, just like we heard from Nanke and from Uboga, so organizations also, based on their level, are still, trying to imbibe and incorporate some of like what we've said. And basically, it's turning out to be more like a way of life. But like we also know that not all organizations, Nanke also made reference to it, not all organizations will be at the same level, but that's okay. The main thing is that at whatever level, you try to continue to make progress and to sustain the positive things that you're doing. But the organizations have, accepted the importance of having this, positive culture, because ultimately it's, making it more, you have more staff who are more productive, because they are more invested and committed to the organization, rather than staff who just want to work and leave the next day when they get the opportunity. Yeah. That's what I have to say to that.
Thank you, Oge, for responding to that. I have a question for you here, Uboga, from Pusa. And it says, could you describe more what does it mean by that staff have difficulties to differentiate between values and abusive situations? And I have a similar question, a similar comment from Fumilayo Oyefusi below in relation to that question. And it says, reward in the form of sanctions can also encourage and reinforce positive behavior and discourage negative behavior. For instance, in the experience sharing, the staff being bold and not knowing how to differentiate boldness and being rude can be sanctioned, and that would send a message about unacceptable behavior not being tolerated. So please, I would like you, Woga, to respond to Pusa's question, and as an executive director of an organization, make a comment to Fumilayo's comments and contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think Fumilayo's comments and contribution also helped to unpack the question that was asked by Pusa. There are values which we have unpacked as a result of this project. In our organization, we value hard work, we value commitment, we value ingenuity, transparency, and a staff would fail to do its duties. And when the staff is being disciplined for not doing the duties, the staff thinks, because he knows what it is, now to be empowered, says, I mean, these things you say now or how you address this situation is making the work environment toxic. And we are trying to let them understand that that doesn't create a toxic environment. Your line supervisor is only trying to draw your attention to understanding what the work culture is in this place. We value commitment and hard work. So while they look at that as an equal power relation, we draw their attention to what the values of the workplace is and what the culture is. You have left that culture of hard work and commitment to your work. All you know now, you are talking about how the unequal power relation is being played out. It's not an unequal power relation, but only discipline that has to be set at the place of work to ensure that things are done well. And like you said, to Fumi's this question, we have had courses to reward hard work and commitment to work in this place. At the end of the quarter, each quarter, we had to reward the best staff. We have to reward the best volunteer, and that has created a healthy competition among staff to ensure that in the next quarter I would be the one due for this reward. So this is how we have been going. I'd like to add a little to what the first question Ogechi responded to. I am the only one representing all the CSOs who benefited from it. And I would like to say that we have sustained it. We are happy to have had an internal mentor. So the external mentor supported the internal mentor, though not with us at the moment, but from time to time we have reflection sessions with our internal mentor, all of us together, and it helps to keep us on our toes and reminds us of what we need to do on a regular basis to keep the culture going and to promote the culture. And I think it has really helped us a lot. We had a visit, a TA visit from one of our donors just last week, Monday. Before they came to us, they had been to 3 other states. This is the 4th state. And what they found here, they didn't find it anywhere. So they were seriously impressed by what they saw. And I think all credit goes to the support we have received from this program, which has helped to improve the culture of work in our place here. Thank you. Over to you, Oluchi.
Thank you so much, Ubuga, for that. I'd like you to respond to this question, Nanke, as a mentor that was involved in the process. And the question is from Subla Hasmi. Pardon me if I did not get that correctly. And it says, how did you monitor that the safeguarding actions were transformational in nature beyond compliance? And I remember during your presentation, Nanke, you mentioned the essence of organizational culture and how that relates to some informal practices rather than most of the tangible ones that we'll talk about in safeguarding. Over to you, please. You are muted, please.
Sorry, can you take the question again?
How did you monitor that the safeguarding actions were transformational in nature beyond compliance?
Okay, thank you for that question. And I just want to say that while developing the actions for, implementation, there were actually actions that were practical actions and were actions that we looked into a more sustainable actions. And of course, for the fact that we have the modifications, for example, the modification we did like on the HR policy, we ensured that work with the organizations to see the dissemination of it. And I can tell you that when they put out advert there, what I do is to look at the advert and see if there's actually an inclusion of some of the modifications that have been made. So like these were some of the ways that I was monitoring. And but of course, always checking up with the organizations and see how far they are going. Was also one of the was one of the ways I was monitoring what they were doing. So it's not just to have hold a session today and just leave it there, but then constantly engage in conversations with the organization leadership, with the staff, to see how best they are faring in the sessions. So these were some of the ways that I worked with them to monitor to ensure that they move beyond compliance to transformation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Would you like to add to this, Oge?
Yes. So again, I think the mentoring support is also a specific way of supporting organizations so that it goes beyond compliance. So Nanke, as a mentor, has shared what she does with these organizations. So when you have specific person that is working and supporting these organizations in a non-threatening manner, because what we've seen in the past is that even from like assessing where they are, like the baseline, so whatever assessment, capacity strengthening plan, or whatever it is that is being used to have to conduct an assessment, an organization will always want to maybe rank themselves high because they are used to the fact that if we do poorly, then that means maybe we'll be dropped. So, but with RSH and with the capacity strengthening and capacity sharing approach that we take, and the mentorship approach, which is not just to tell you to do something, but rather support you along the way. And then you're also seeing the importance of, that action. You understand the benefits and, why it's actually essential. So that makes it now transformational. And for a leader to accept that, okay, so I need to have my organization safe because it is important, it is the right thing to do, then that really goes beyond just for the purposes of checking the box. And I always tell leaders, imagine all that you've been putting in this organization. Then if someone now goes contrary to your safeguarding policy, it becomes a major issue, and you yourself will lose out, and all the trust you've tried to gain over the years will just be lost because of an action or inaction of someone. So it's important that you put in these measures in place. So when you understand really the importance and also the benefit for them as an organization, then it really helps to go beyond just checking the box for compliance, but rather that's sustained. And then over the years, they've even continued to have that relationship with their mentors, where they will contact them and ask a specific question. And I even mentioned, the community of practice is also a way where they share and still learn even after the project has ended. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Oge, for responding to that as well, in addition to what Nanke has shared. Please use the Q&A button to send in your question, and we'll respond to them as much as we can. We will now be sharing a poll with you, and we'll be grateful if you can complete this poll, as it helps us to tailor our services to suit you and the needs that you may have to continue to improve on your safeguarding journey. While we do that, I'd like to also call on you, Oge, to respond to another very interesting question that I see here in the chat from Nura Dahiru Sani. And it says, how does organizations create a safe space for its staff? And maybe in addition to that, also respond briefly to Anna's question on how do senior leaders model a positive behavior?
Okay, so thanks for those questions, very important questions. And I want to start by saying, like, safe space, can be a physical location where there is like a designated office space or room where staff, especially those whose voices are usually not heard, maybe like the junior staff or whichever group that is minority in that organization, can always come together, or even general staff. But it's important to first, react to the needs of the vulnerable and the minority in that organization, like junior staff or the other minority. So it can be that physical space where they can come together, they can talk about issues, and then somebody, will be able to take it on to the leadership to be able to handle that. Then, but also generally, like emotionally, psychologically, an organization can also be a safe space where, as you are going into that organization, that, like, this is where you feel welcomed. You're even going to the field, that, yes, with your team members, you feel welcome. So basically, how to build this is by first, like, it's important that the organization is a learning organization. So when an organization always like have this blame game, when an issue occurs, it's always looking for who to blame, instead of saying, okay, what can we learn from this? So it's important to say, what can we learn from this? Let an organization be a learning organization. That way, staff will not be too anxious, when an issue occurs, but rather they'll be able to discuss it openly. And when they discuss it openly, suggestions will come, and then that will not repeat itself again. And so for leaders, it also like goes the same way. And thanks, Oluchi, for badging the two. When leaders model positive behavior, that means when they are saying we're not discriminatory, we are not favoring anybody special, then that should really show. When they say that voices are respected, then they should also make opportunity, make it easy for people to be able to reach them and raise any concerns they have. And when these concerns are raised, the leaders need to address it in a manner that is acceptable, and not to sweep it under the carpet, or not to make the staff feel that they shouldn't have brought this, or belittle the staff. So whatever positive behavior, whatever like good thing that we are promoting, be it inclusiveness, be it promoting diversity, whatever it is, be it the safe organization, like the staff, the leader should be able to model that, they are creating they have safeguarding issue at heart, where these things are discussed, and staff will themselves see that, yes, this organization is actually walking the talk and not just saying things just for the donors to be happy about.
Thank you so much, Oge. Thank you, Uboga. Thank you, Nanke Bukisule, for your very informative presentations, responses to the questions that we've received. And thank you all, our audience, for your engaging and challenging questions. Sadly, that's all we'll have time for today. And I want to sincerely apologize that we are not able, with regards to time, To respond to all of the questions that we'll have in the Q&A section, in the chat box, but be rest assured that we're going to respond to each and every one of them and post them on our website, and we'll let you know when that is ready. So you can please visit our website and look at the responses to the question. Even if it's not your question, look at those and learn from the responses that will be shared. And thank you as well for completing the poll. It is now time for us to say goodbye to everyone. And please remember that if you want to hear more about our future RSH webinars, you can subscribe to our newsletter. You can visit our website. The link is in the chat box. And we hope to connect with you soon. Thank you, everyone, and do have a great day ahead.
Thank you.